Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. Ladies and gentlemen, come closer. I can't talk loudly. They might be listening. I may have been infiltrated by a Russian spy. Yeah, I think they're listening to me right now. Now I can't prove it. But things around the house have been a little dicey, if you know what I mean. It's hard to explain. Maybe I just better show you what I mean.
How's the traffic from Pebble Rock School to the airport?
А не то, что она упала, ты начинаешь дрочилкой, блядь, выключать скорость, блядь! Уже все включено и лампа!
Okay.
I could be wrong. It's just that it's super intense around the house these days. Let's get to the post. 23:29, 52 minutes after the hour of 11 p.m. We get this Hill article. Q says, read carefully. It takes you right here. Collusion bombshell. DNC lawyers met with FBI on Russian allegations before surveillance warrant. And this is by John Solomon. Congressional investigators have confirmed that a top FBI official met with Democratic Party lawyers to talk about allegations of Donald Trump-Russia collusion weeks before the 2016 election and before the Bureau secured a search warrant targeting Trump's campaign. Former FBI General Counsel James Baker met during the 2016 season with at least one attorney from Perkins Coie, the Democratic National Committee's private law firm. That's the firm used by the DNC and Hillary Clinton's campaign to secretly pay research firm Fusion GPS and Christopher Steele, a former British intelligence operative, to compile a dossier of uncorroborated raw intelligence alleging Trump and Moscow were colluding to hijack the presidential election. The dossier, though mostly unverified, was then used by the FBI as the main evidence seeking a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act (FISA) warrant targeting the Trump campaign in the final days of the campaign. The revelation was confirmed both in contemporaneous evidence and testimony secured by a joint investigation by Republicans on the House Judiciary and Government Oversight Committees, my source tells me. It means the FBI had good reason to suspect the dossier was connected to the DNC's main law firm and was the product of a Democratic opposition research effort to defeat Trump, yet failed to disclose that information to the FISA court in October 2016 when the Bureau applied for a FISA warrant to surveil Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. This is a bombshell that unequivocally shows the real collusion was between the FBI and Donald Trump's opposition, the DNC, Hillary, and a Trump-hating British intel officer to hijack the election rather than some conspiracy between Putin and Trump, a knowledgeable source told me. Baker was interviewed by lawmakers behind closed doors on Wednesday. Sources declined to divulge much about his testimony other than to say it confirmed other evidence about the contact between the Perkins Coie law firm and the FBI. The sources said Baker identified lawyer Michael Sussman, a former DOJ lawyer, and the Perkins Coie attorney who reached out to him and said the firm gave him documents and a thumb drive related to Russian interference in the election, hacking, and possible Trump connections. Information gathered separately by another congressional committee indicate the contact occurred in September, the month before the FISA warrant was approved. A spokeswoman for the FBI declined comment. Spokespersons for Perkins Coie and the Justice Department did not return a message seeking comment. The sources also said Baker's interview broke new ground both about the FBI's use of news media in 2016 and 2017 to further the Trump case about Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein's conversation in spring of 2017 regarding possible use of a body wire to record Trump. The interview was one of the most productive we had, and it opened up many new investigative leads, one source said. Another said Baker could not answer some questions about FBI media contacts, citing an ongoing investigation by the Justice Department Inspector General into alleged illegal leaks during and after the election about the Trump collusion probe and other matters. These revelations illustrate anew how much the FBI and Justice Department have withheld from the public about their collaboration and collusion with clearly partisan elements of the Clinton campaign and the DNC, Fusion and Steele, that were trying to defeat Trump. Okay, so this is a lot of information that we kind of already knew, but now it looks like James Baker is confirming this. This is a very, very big deal because James Baker is a very, he's not exactly a small fry, is he? We're not exactly getting, some sort of testimony from some guy in the mailroom. This is James Baker, and of course he was general counsel to the FBI and James Comey. So this is a really, really big deal, and it looks like the tide is turning. We're going to talk more about this in the next post, but let's move on for now. Post 23:30, 24 minutes after the hour of 12. Q adds on by taking us back to this August post here. It says SPY-OP. And then we see these three companies here, Fusion GPS, Perkins Coie, and Washington Free Beacon. Shell 1, and then we have two different Shell twos. Now, Washington Free Beacon, if you'll remember, they were the ones that funded Fusion GPS. And so they were the original shell company there. And then, of course, that kind of spawns Perkins Coie and Fusion GPS. And this was a communication chain. Fusion GPS being Glenn Simpson. He was talking to Christopher Steele, who was also sharing information with No Name being Senator McCain. And then we see these little, I forget what you call these little check things, but we see 5 and 6 respectively with Perkins Coie and Washington Free Beacon. Now, I'm not sure if these are identifying individuals that were also working under No Name McCain. That's what I guessed back then, and I still think that's probably what it means. But I think the important thing is to kind of start seeing who's getting subpoenaed now in regards to all of this, and it may give us an idea as to some of these identities here. So a very important flow chart to kind of know as we talk about this. And we got this in brackets, part regarding Fusion GPS, Perkins Coie now being revealed. Yeah, just as we are about to sort of reach this pinnacle with this Kavanaugh situation, all of a sudden it looks like the white hats are tossing a little curveball into the game with this. And it's important to know because this is the essence of our spying. This is the essence of our betrayal, our treason. Obviously, a lot of things happened way before this, but this was really sort of the the turning point in all of this. But it's also important for the average citizen to realize that not only was a spying going on with a lot of our unelected officials, but this was connected to the media. Seeing the connection between the Washington Free Beacon and Fusion GPS is really, really important. And I don't think the average, unhinged left liberal is ready to accept any of this, but it's factual. And we know it, we can see it, we've got a trail. Now, the quote here says, former FBI General Counsel James Baker met during the 2016 season with at least one attorney from Perkins Coie, the Democratic National Committee's private law firm. Well, who would that be? Well, Q takes it right here to Perkins Coie, Michael Sussman. Michael Sussman, formerly with the U.S. Department of Justice, is a nationally recognized privacy, cybersecurity, and national security lawyer. He's engaged on some of the most sophisticated, high-stakes matter today, such as his representation of the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign in their responses to Russian hacking in the 2016 presidential election. This work was detailed in his best-selling books, The Perfect Weapon, 2018, Russian Roulette, 2018, and Hacks, 2017. So, this guy's sort of their resident expert. Hey, Michael, looks like you got a few things to suss out these days. You got a pretty smarmy look on you. I'm not sure if I trust you, but he's steely. He's got a good poker face. He's looking at you like, what? Yeah, we were hacked. True story. All right. So we see what's up, right? We see that these guys had met back in 2016. Well, Trump was still just a candidate back then. This wasn't okay to do. They were all ready to take him down. Now, Q's going to add on to this in the next post, 23:31, 14 minutes after the hour of 1. We get this letter right here. Let me take you over here. It's from October 24th, 2017, regarding William W. Taylor III. Dear Mr. Taylor, I write on behalf of Perkins Coie, LLP, as its general counsel. We understand that your client, Fusion GPS, has received a number of requests for information regarding the identity of clients who engaged Fusion GPS to conduct research during the 2016 presidential campaign. We further are aware that Fusion GPS is currently engaged in litigation in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia in an effort to prevent the compelled disclosure of its bank records, which would reveal confidential client information. Yeah, I suppose that would be inconvenient, yeah? We recognize the important principle of client confidentiality, and we appreciate your efforts to fulfill your obligation to maintain client confidentiality. In the circumstances, however, we believe it is appropriate to release Fusion GPS from this obligation as it relates to the identity of Perkins Coie. Further, given the interest in this issue, we believe it would be appropriate for all parties who hired Fusion GPS in connection with the 2016 presidential campaign to release Fusion GPS from this obligation as well. Finally, Now that the appropriate client representatives have been informed of the specifics of our engagement with Fusion GPS and with their consent, Perkins Coie therefore authorizes you to disclose the following. Fusion GPS approached Perkins Coie in early March of 2016 and, aware that Perkins Coie represented the Democratic National Committee, DNC, and HFACC Incorporated, Hillary for America, with respect to the 2016 elections, expressed interest in an engagement with the firm in connection with the 2016 presidential election to continue research regarding then presidential candidate Donald Trump, research that Fusion GPS had conducted for one or more other clients during the Republican primary contest. To assist in its representation of the DNC and Hillary for America, Perkins Coie engaged Fusion GPS in April of 2016 to perform a variety of research services during the 2016 election. By its term, the engagement concluded prior to the November 2016 presidential election. Nothing in this consent to the disclosure above authorizes Fusion GPS to disclose or waive any privilege with respect to communications or other information otherwise protected by this firm or its client's attorney-client privilege and work product protections, nor does this authorization constitute a waiver of any applicable privilege of this firm or its client. And it signed this Matthew J. Geringer, General Counsel for Perkins Coie. Okay, so this sounds a little bit like a shut up and cover your butt letter, right? So, interesting stuff. Now, originally, this Washington Free Beacon, they said that this was a normal thing, that they just went ahead and gathered information on all the presidential candidates. That's just what they did. Now we get this right here. No one knew just how bad the breach was, but it was clear that a lot more than a single filing cabinet worth of materials might have been taken. A secret committee was immediately created, including Miss Dacey, Miss Wasserman Schultz, Mr. Brown, and Michael Sussman, a former cybercrimes prosecutor at the Department of Justice who now works at Perkins Coie, the Washington law firm that handles DNC political matters. Now, Q goes on to say how the spy op regarding Russian hacking, plus POTUS, Russia false narrative, plus installation of Mueller was constructed. So Q is basically showing how this is all built. They essentially came up with a motive, they came up with a crime, and then they installed their prosecutors and their investigators and set off to take down Trump. They literally wanted to have somebody kind of installed in every single step of the way, including the research. This next link basically takes you to the letter that we just read that was up here. And then we get a Washington Post article, and I am on a paywall with them. I refuse to give them any of my money. The title here says, Russian government hackers penetrated DNC, stole opposition research on Trump. And essentially, this was a claim that we heard already. And where did we hear it from? We heard it from CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike being the one that were handling Hillary's servers. And of course, they were all wrapped up in this mess. So now, out of this article, we get this. Britain, Australia, and New Zealand have accused Russian military intelligence of carrying out a worldwide campaign of malicious cyber attacks, including the hacking of the U.S. Democratic National Committee in 2016. Well, they didn't need to hack it. Hillary would have just gone ahead and sold it, right? She's like Costco. She sells everything, right? Well, that's what was going on. We saw this with really lots of countries, but in particular, we've been talking about China as of late, and we're going to talk about them a little bit later too. But this claim from CrowdStrike was very similar. Yeah, this was a hack, and we all know that any kind of information that would have left those servers at that rate of speed never could have been a hack. Enter Seth Rich. It was likely some sort of thumb drive, though, so it probably was leaked, but it was definitely not hacked. But now we have Five Eyes nations entering the fray, saying Britain, Australia, and New Zealand are now accusing Russian military intelligence. So now they're jumping on that same narrative that CrowdStrike did, which means they must be guilty too. And if they're members of the Five Eyes nations, I have a feeling that the Five Eyes is going to come out absolutely decimated when the smoke clears with all this. But they're definitely covering their butts too, Britain, Australia, and New Zealand. So like I said last week, this is becoming now a worldwide soap opera. Our friends from over the pond are getting involved, and we're going to start seeing who the bad players in their governments were too, and I'm sure they're going to start selling each other out and eating their own and doing exactly what the deep state does. And the deep state exists pretty much all around the world, right? Well, why now? Because of a D-class is coming, because everyone can smell the bacony cheesy goodness, right? Then we get this CNN link here too, and this essentially illustrates what we're talking about. UK blames Russian military for reckless cyber attack. We're going right back to Russia, only now it's coming from the UK. Britain, Australia, and New Zealand have accused Russian military intelligence of carrying out a worldwide campaign of malicious cyber attacks, including the hacking of the U.S. Democratic National Committee in 2016. That's the part we just read there. British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt said in a statement Thursday that the country's National Cybersecurity Center had found the Russian GRU intelligence service operatives were behind cyber attacks believed to have cost the global economy millions of dollars. Australia and New Zealand released similar statements alleging that their own intelligence agencies had found evidence of Russian involvement in the same attacks on political, business, media, and sporting institutions. Britain, Australia, and New Zealand are all members of the Five Eyes Intelligence Sharing Alliance, which also includes the US and Canada. Okay, so everybody's getting ready to poo on the Russian GRU, huh? Everybody's ready to start selling each other out and saying it wasn't me, and it's easier to go ahead and point towards Russia because so much of the Democratic left is already assuming that that's the case. So it only kind of just strengthens their narrative in their way. The fact of the matter is we know it leads right back to them, and we know that this is going to lead to an avalanche, a D5 avalanche. Q also included this tweet in the previous post from Bob Goodlatte as part of our joint investigation into decisions made by DOJ in 2016. Today I subpoenaed Glenn Simpson to appear for deposition. The plot thickens, and we've also got James Comey, Loretta Lynch, Sally Yates, Stuart Evans, Richard Scott, Sally Moyer, and Mike Cortan as witnesses. We'll subpoena them if necessary. So Goodlatte is bringing the good stuff. Now, I want to take you back over here to this previous post too, and just show you that this title had an interesting collection of letters here. Now, I'm not sure if I'm completely right on this, but what I saw off the top of my head, I thought DWS here. Could that be Debbie Wasserman Schultz? And then over here, could that be AWAN? Awan? Not really sure, but I just saw that in the title, and you can let me know what you think about that right there. Moving on to 23:32, 17 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m. 17! We get a Hill link. Q says nothing to see here. D5. Red October. Q, and it takes us over here. Russian official with ties to lawyer in Trump Tower meeting dies in helicopter crash. A Russian deputy attorney general who is thought to have directed Russian attorney Natalia Veselnitskaya in her efforts abroad on behalf of Russia's government reportedly died Wednesday night in a helicopter crash. The Daily Beast reported that Sak Albertovich Karapetyan was aboard an unauthorized helicopter flight which crashed near the village of Vonishevo, outside of Moscow. Karapetyan was reportedly behind Veselnitskaya's global efforts to lobby lawmakers to overturn anti-corruption acts such as the U.S. Magnitsky Act, which passed in 2012. The U.S. legislation is similar to others around the world which commemorate Sergei Magnitsky, a lawyer who died while trying to expose a $230 million fraud scheme in Russia. The acts have reportedly incensed Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Daily Beast reported that Karapetyan signed a letter sent on behalf of Russia's government to a U.S. court in 2014, refusing assistance into an investigation concerning Magnitsky's death. The letter was drafted reportedly with aid from Veselnitskaya. Okay, so this is pretty interesting stuff. This guy, Karapetyan, was on an unauthorized helicopter flight, which means that whatever he was trying to do, he was trying to either get away or get to something really, really quick enough to not need to be authorized. What was he doing on that flight? Was he running? Now, Putin has not been a fan of this Magnitsky Act at all. And now we can kind of enter Bill Browder, guys like this who have been really going after Putin. So I'm not really sure where this is all going to take us, but it looks to me like this guy was definitely maybe fleeing the deep state, and it looks like the deep state very well might have caught up to him. It looks like he's definitely got some information. Now, he was part of Like it says, he directed Russian attorney Natalia Veselnitskaya, and she was the kind of one that was trying to set up this meeting in Trump Tower, right? So now we're getting really, really tangled. The deep state players are starting to come out, and people are, like I said, selling themselves out, and now we've got ourselves another crash. Now, let me just read it down here. Trump Jr. has maintained publicly that the meeting was a waste of time, stating that the meeting was focused on Russian adoption policy. Veselnitskaya, however, has said publicly that the two discussed the Magnitsky Act during the meeting, alleging that Trump Jr. pledged to look into the issue after his father assumed office. Okay, well, that's not really, I think they were really trying to get Trump with this, and it's really not illegal to do. It's not a big deal. So it looks to me like we've got more of nothing to see here, and this avalanche is starting to catch some casualties in the midst of our Red October. Let's move on. Post 2333, 20 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m., we get this from an Anon statement from the president on the national strategy for counterterrorism. We'll take a look at that in a second. The Anon says, new POTUS tweet with this. Q says, did we hit 000? We do try. Well, they most certainly did, because this statement came from President Donald Trump at 12:17. 17! And it came exactly at the same time as the previous Q post. Now let's get to the statement from the president on the national strategy for counterterrorism. As your president, I am committed to protecting the United States and its interests abroad from the threat of terrorism. The national strategy for counterterrorism that I approve today will help protect our great nation, enhance our national security, and guide our continued effort to defeat terrorists and terrorist organizations that threaten the United States. Under my leadership, the United States has accelerated efforts to defeat terrorists. Working with coalition partners, we have decimated ISIS in Syria and Iraq. Likewise, I ended the United States' participation in the horrible Iran deal, which had provided a windfall for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and its proxies, funding Iran's malign activities throughout the world. Importantly, I have also secured historic increases in defense funding to rebuild our nation's military. The National Strategy for Counterterrorism is an important next step. It outlines the approach of the United States to countering the increasingly complex and evolving terrorist threats and represents the nation's first fully articulated counterterrorism strategy since 2011. It provides the strategic guidance needed to protect the United States against all terrorist threats, while simultaneously fostering the agility to anticipate, prevent, and respond to new threats. Guided by the National Strategy for Counterterrorism, we will use all instruments of American power to protect our great nation, and we will defeat our enemies with the full force of American might. And as you can see, there's the big old signature of one Donald J. Trump.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Wow!
Post 2334, 14 minutes after the hour of 4. Q takes us back to April, saying, think Navy ship crashes. Bigger than you know. We are active. Q. Yeah, if you remember back in January, we had these guys here. They were actually charged with homicide in these two ship crashes. There was a couple of them. Former Commander Bryce Benson of the USS Fitzgerald and former Commander Alfredo J. Sanchez of the USS John S. McCain are among those charged, according to USNI News. Additionally, 2 lieutenants and 1 lieutenant junior grade of the Fitzgerald also faced charges, the Navy said. Among the charges are dereliction of duty, hazarding a vehicle, and negligent homicide. And there you can see a picture of the crash right there. This is a very strange situation, right? So Q is telling us to think Navy ship crashes. And then we get these pictures here. And if you remember, we saw this. This would have also been in, this was in May, where we saw all these pallets. And we knew it had something to do with China, right? All these pallets were coming off from China. We didn't know exactly if they were phones or if they were servers. We had a feeling that they were a ton of both. We're not sure. Then we had this picture from this Apple store. And this is the Apple store in Hong Kong, I believe, when we had this refrigerator, what looked to be a refrigerated truck backing here in this picture. Now Q takes us to this Bloomberg article. And the Bloomberg article is entitled The Big Hack right here. Now, it's a massive article. And I've just basically dodged into the pictures because pictures are fun. And it basically shows you an illustrated diagram here of how the hack worked. A Chinese military unit designed and manufactured microchips as small as a sharpened pencil tip. Some of the chips were built to look like signal conditioning couplers, and they incorporated memory, networking capability, and sufficient processing power for an attack. The microchips were inserted at Chinese factories that supplied Supermicro, one of the world's biggest sellers of server motherboards. The compromised motherboards were built into servers assembled by Supermicro. The sabotaged servers made their way inside data centers operated by dozens of companies. When a server was installed and switched on, the microchip altered the operating system's core so it could accept modifications. The chip could also contact computers controlled by the attackers in search of further instructions and code. So that's a lot of how it was done. That was a big article. I'm going to post it to my Patreon. I still haven't finished it yet, and I'd like to look at it. But I just want to point out that it's in regards to this Elemental Technologies, and I believe it's Elemental Technologies actually, and they are owned by Amazon. Now, Q dials us into the part here. Elemental's servers could be found in Department of Defense data centers, the CIA's drone operations, and the onboard networks of Navy warships. Multiple people familiar with the matter say investigators found that the chips had been inserted at factories run by manufacturing subcontractors in China. One official says investigators found that it eventually affected almost 30 companies, including a major bank, government contractors, and the world's most valuable company, Apple Incorporated. So that would explain the pictures, right? One country in particular has an advantage executing this kind of attack, China, which by some estimates makes 75% of the world's mobile phones and 90% of its PCs. But that's just what U.S. investigators found. The chips had been inserted during the manufacturing process, two officials say, by operatives from a unit of the People's Liberation Army in Supermicro. China spies appears to have found a perfect conduit for what U.S. officials now describe as the most significant supply chain attack known to have been carried out against American companies. And Q says, the more you know, Q. So essentially, while Hillary was selling tons and tons of secrets to China, and we've seen this over and over again. And of course, we've got Feinstein and her driver that she had for 20 years. And of course, she ended up walking away with $1 bazillion. How does she do that on a senator's salary, right? We're not really sure. It looks like they were selling everything out to China. Meanwhile, crying out Russia. And this is how they were doing it. They were just simply doing it in these chips right here. They were just putting it in there and then installing it in everyone's, really all, even into our own military. So China was getting everything. And that's precisely why Trump is being so hard on China right now. And of course, now it looks like Feinstein's not feeling so well, is she?
And I'm not going to take any questions.
Nor am I.
Oh, well, you had plenty of questions for Kavanaugh, didn't you? You sure wanted him to answer some questions. Now you don't want to play ball, huh? What's up, Buttercup? You better back that thing up. And looks like Schumer doesn't want to play ball either. Hey, Chuck, I'll bet you were afraid of this thing happening, weren't you? I'll bet this is the sum of all your fears.
Those fears have been realized.
I know, right?
Yeah, I like that.
I like that too, John. Well, that was their response to the FBI's Kavanaugh report. Doesn't have much to do with China, although it will eventually lead to their misdeeds in China. Q adds on to this in 23:35, 22 minutes after the hour of 4 p.m., taking us back to the classic hits post 1337 back in May. Facebook is listening to you 24/7, 365. Yeah, that's fantastic, isn't it? Literally. F9 algorithm. Yeah, this is an algorithm that they shot up in space, and they've been listening to us all along. Are they recording safe housing? You bet they are. Metadata collection? You bet they are. Where are they putting it? They're putting it in Building 8. And Building 8 is essentially this, how should I say? It's DARPA, essentially. Now, if you're not familiar with DARPA at this point, I highly suggest you do some looking on that and at least briefly watch a video on it or something like that. DARPA is very important to know about it, but essentially DARPA is Facebook, right? DARPA is a lot of this. DARPA is Twitter. DARPA is all this stuff, right? But Facebook's got their own little Building 8 out there. And essentially, if you can spy on somebody, if you can blow something up or poison somebody or kill somebody or destroy the world with it, DARPA has their 10 best men working on it right now. It is essentially the evil villain lair. All right, it's the Bat Cave for baddies. And it's all about China, China, China. They got themselves their own little Building 8 out there in China. And Snowden kind of helped hook them up originally with it. And I'm sure that Zuckerberg has done a lot of contribution out there. He wanted to set up a kind of a different kind of Facebook, essentially a Facebook that wasn't lying about spying. And I'm not really sure how that's gone down. China was sort of pressured to say the no on that. And I think we're sort of still dealing with that. It's something that is not a finished story at this point, but they are indeed spying. So like I said, if you're new to QAnon or if you're new to this kind of stuff at all, do some research on DARPA. It helps to know what it really essentially is. But this spying program's going on forever. And Facebook was just another name of the same kind of program. Q takes us back over here, February 22nd. Clowns revealed in China, other. And that was back in 2010. I don't remember how many total. I remember about 9 of them, but I think there was even more. Anyway, China didn't deal with them. They just went ahead and offed them, whether it was to shut them up or to punish them. Probably a little bit of both. But these guys were selling intel, and they were sold intel from Hillary Rodham Clinton's open source server. Like I said, she's Costco. She's like, what do you want? You want it on discount? You want to buy in bulk? What's up? I'm Hillary Rodham Costco. Missing emails. That's how you can attribute all that. And CrowdStrike, we have them to thank because that's the group that she hired basically to do all that. Meanwhile, CrowdStrike was doing that and saying, oh no, we got hacked by Russia, blah, blah, blah. They were selling everything to China, granting them access. They betrayed us all, only the tip. Yeah, we're going to find out what the whole thing looks like. Hopefully one day, but right now we are just dealing with the tip of this iceberg. The rest will be made public very, very soon. And Q is just basically essentially affirming everything that's been said beforehand. Let's move on. Post 2336, 27 minutes after the hour of 4 p.m. Israeli intelligence stand down. Then it looks to be a termination code here in brackets. Media assets will be removed. Now, I suppose you could look at the very center and maybe it's just a phone number. Who knows? But it looks to be some sort of termination code. We do know that Israeli intelligence happens to be all spread throughout a lot of our alternative media. Of course, our mainstream media too, but particularly our alternative media. We got a lot of fake MAGA going on. I'm not going to name any names or whatnot, but I will say this. A lot of those fake MAGA names have been very quiet about Q, and probably for good reason. They probably know that they very well could be next. Looks like they might be ready to tinker with something. Looks like Q's aware of that and is telling them to stand down. Now, I'm not going to wax and wane too much about this code yet because I'm not much of a code guy, but if you've got something for that, feel free to share and we'll see what we can come up with. But it looks like Mossad and the Cube is being told to stand down. Let's move on to 2037. 40 minutes after the hour of 4, we got Pain. And look at that. That's a silent executioner right there. Mr. Jeff Sessions, he's got his hand up. He's ready to take an oath like a boss. And he's like, yep, I'm about ready to high five you in the face with my hand. Ready to bring the pain. Well, we are ready for you, sir, and we're about to bring some pain. Let's move on to the next post. Deep State's trying to bring their own pain in 2338, 49 minutes after the hour of 4 p.m. We see this right here and a link to it. Q says Swamp fighting back. And here we go from the New York County Clerk. Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of New York. The People of the State of New York by Barbara D. Underwood, Attorney General of the State of New York, against Donald J. Trump, Donald J. Trump Jr., Ivanka Trump, Eric F. Trump, and the Donald J. Trump Foundation. Memorandum of law in opposition to respondents' motion to dismiss and in further support of the verified petition. Well, let's see what we're talking about right here. Oh, it doesn't sound right. The foundation violated the law by intervening in the 2016 election and engaging in willful related party transactions with the Trump campaign. All right, so I'm not going to spend much time on this 45-page document, but the deep state sure would like us to, wouldn't they? They'd love us to give a whole bunch of attention to that. Tell you what, make you a deal. We'll look into this, and we'll also simultaneously look into the Clinton Foundation. Deal? No deal? No takers? Anyone? Anyone? All right, then. I guess we're moving on. Post 2339. We get this link right here to a BBC News status. D-class coming. Narrative shift in full force. UK, Australia assisted rogue elements of the U.S. government to take down a duly elected candidate president. And the Twitter link takes you to the BBC News here, where you're listening to UK Defence Secretary Gavin Williamson. And let's just play you a little bit of this video here, because BBC loves to hit me with copyright. Here we go.
Expulsion of Russian diplomats, and we are going to be clear where Russia acts in an indiscriminate and reckless way, where they have done in terms of these cyber attacks, we will be exposing them. And what...
Okay, Gavin. Well, come at me, bro. Well, I think you see what's going on. They know the D-class is coming. And like I said, so we've got Mossad involved. We got China involved. We got Russia involved. We got the UK, Australia, New Zealand involved. It is a worldwide soap opera. And now everyone's panicking worldwide, trying to get in front of their own narratives. And everyone is trying to blame it on Russia, Russia, Russia. Well, we all saw this coming. Let's move on as we drop some bombs. Post 2340. We get another Twitter link. Q says, Roger, maybe that's French, Roger, that. I think he meant to say Roger. I always put T when I'm trying to type R2. Roger that, VIP Patriot, USSSSS granted entry to many. And it takes you to the Twitter link of One Red October. Brought my mom to the rally. We in the building, Q. Whoop, whoop. Nice, look at that. He's got the MAGA hat on. Q sent me, and you can only see Mama's head. Maybe you could bring the camera down a little bit. Maybe they're trying to get the big American flag back there. Very nice, handsome dude with his mom. How cool is that to go to the rally with your mom? Very sweet. From a Red October at Glaztron. So if you want to say hello to him, you are more than welcome to. Don't forget to say hi to Mom. All right, let's move on. 2341. 22 minutes after the hour of 8 p.m. Anons, ready? Do it! Post 2342, 25 minutes after the hour of 8 p.m. Memes, ready?
Release the Kraken!
Post 2343, 27 minutes after the hour of 8. Are you ready to see arrests? Are you ready to see pain? Are you ready to be a part of history?
All I wanted was a Whopper, even half a Whopper. Let me get half a Whopper. You got half a Whopper left?
Q, I think the answer is yes. We're ready to see arrests. We're ready to see pain. We're ready to be a part of history. We're ready to have our minds. So let's hope that's exactly what we are going to get. Ladies and gentlemen, those are your Q posts. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who have been liking and sharing my videos. I greatly appreciate it. We are very close to celebrating with some cake, so let's get that done hopefully by tomorrow, Yeah. By the way, tomorrow is Mad Hatter Day. What a great time to do some celebrating, huh? Hopefully we'll have some nice bacony, cheesy goodness. It looks like we are at a fever pitch right now. It's getting really, really exciting. All right, my links are down below to my Gab, my BitChute, my Real.Video. I am over here on my Twitter at IPOT1776. That's at IPOT1776. My email, my Patreon link is down below if you want to support the channel too. All those links are down below in the video description. All right, boys and girls, that is all I got for you. Keep your head on a swivel and also keep your chin up, because you are a patriot. All right, boys and girls, my name is Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay free.